And now, AM 650 presents your source for leading-edge news and information on today's hottest products and services. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
Well, hello and welcome to Key Pacific's Talk About Strata on this edition of Experts on Call. I'm Sterling Fox, joined in studio by the Executive Director of the Condominium Homeowners Association of British Columbia and Vancouver Province condo columnist Tony Gioventu. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Sterling, and Happy New Year.
Well, the same to you. And we have a return guest. Boy, you're making progress when people actually come back for a second visit on the show. Please reintroduce Veronica.
Well, she couldn't resist when we asked her. So Veronica Franco from Clark Wilson Law Corporation in Vancouver is here, and we're going to talk about collections and all the disastrous things that happen with money if you don't pay your bills in a strata.
Veronica, welcome back. It's great to have you back on the show.
Great, thanks. It's great to be here.
Well, right, let's get right to it. Now that 2012 numbers are just beginning to become available at this point in January, we're starting to see some trends, and not all of them are particularly positive, particularly in the world of strata. Now, Veronica, one of the reasons that I'm so pleased to have you back with us is because we've seen an uptick in court order for sale proceedings due to non-payment of strata fees and special levies. Is this sort of a trend? Has this been rising over the years? Are we at a new all-time high, or is this an aberration?
I think it's a growing trend. We had, during that leaky condo period, there was quite a few order for sales.
Sure.
And then things just died down. And even through 2008, when we had the downturn of the economy and housing prices seemed to plateau, people seemed to manage to keep it together for a while. Mm-hmm. But now I think it's starting to catch up with them. And all of a sudden we're seeing a lot more people unable to pay strata fees and special levies.
Now, normally when you hear about these court proceedings, it usually comes in the form of a foreclosure because the occupant was unable to pay his or her mortgage. So this business, Tony, of non-payment of strata fees and special levies is separate and apart altogether from one's ability to pay one's mortgage, correct?
Well, you will see that they're frequently not even connected. Sometimes a resident may be paying their strata fees and not paying their mortgage. Okay. Or the alternative, they may be paying their mortgage and not their strata fees or their special levies. And so, as the owner of the strata lot, you have two parties that are going to be after you to collect money. Well, three actually, because you will have your mortgage provider who's after you, you will have your strata corporation who's after you, and you'll eventually have the municipality if you're not paying your property taxes as well. So you have these three financial obligations, and when you start stacking up all these costs that are associated with your monthly mortgages, your strata fees, your insurance, your property taxes, what seemed like a manageable expense with just the mortgage on the front line suddenly starts to grow dramatically with respects to the cost.
Veronica, a technical quick question. Back in the day, the banks they would set up your mortgage payments if you wanted, so that your mortgage payment would also include your property tax, and then the bank would take care of that bill when it came in, and you only had the one item to concern yourself with in terms of your monthly financing. Is that still a practice that the banks conduct, or have they disassociated themselves from that, and you're on your own when it comes to your property tax?
They still do that, but much less so, and I think it's because people are deciding that they will come up with the money for property taxes at some point, and whether it's they're waiting for their income tax refund and they'll use their income tax refund to pay for their property taxes, or they figure they're going to budget it on their own, they would rather save up for it. And unfortunately, when the day-to-day expenses of running their own household come in, they actually don't end up budgeting for them.
Okay, now we've got to talk about these two columns that Tony has identified in terms of why the courts are getting these individuals and having these order for sale proceedings. One is non-payment of strata fees, the other non-payment of special levies. Let's take a quick second, the two of you, and identify both of those items. Tony, we all think we know what condo fees or strata fees are. Remind us of of the details involved, because maybe they're a little more than what some of us imagine them to be.
Well, our strata fees really are our level of taxation within our strata corporation. Strata corporations are just a simple form of government, is all they are. And so the strata corporation has to pay its expenses, like its utilities and its insurance and its maintenance on its buildings and roadways and all of those things. So at the annual meeting each year, the strata corporation, that would be the owners at the meeting,
right,
come together, and they have two basic things they must do. They must pass an annual budget, and they must elect a council. So those are the two basic tasks of the annual meeting, the business of the strata. The annual budget is what is used to determine the total value of how strata fees are created.
Okay.
So the total value, let's say we're in a 55-unit building, we pass an annual budget of $300,000.
And that includes landscaping, snow removal, you name it. That's what it's going to cost us to keep this place looking shipshape for a year.
That and what we're contributing to our contingency fund for the long term.
Okay.
We hopefully now have a depreciation report that says we need to contribute so much a year to meet our future costs.
All right.
Which hopefully, if we've done that, we don't have to then talk to Veronica about our special levies, which we can't afford. But the annual budget will include all the operating costs and our contingency contributions. So we end up with this amount of money of $350,000. Then we take from the land title registry the schedule of unit entitlement. And what that essentially is what's the square footage or ratio of each strata lot.
Right, okay.
So you take the total number of you take the ratio of the strata lot, divide it by the total number of all the strata lots, and that tells you what percentage I'm paying of the total strata fees.
So the person on the top floor in the 3-bedroom penthouse is decidedly going to pay more than the person in the 1-bedroom on the ground floor.
They may be paying 2 or 3 times more, or you may be in an older strata where the models were slightly different. Prior to the Strata Property Act coming into effect, it didn't have to be based on habitable square footage. It was based upon whatever formula that was proposed by the developer and that was accepted by the superintendent of real estate and the registrar at land titles.
Okay.
It's still that procedure, but now the Act is fairly clear that it defines and focuses you on actual square footage. So you may find that we might be in a townhouse complex where the original unit entitlement, even though we have 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units, the original unit entitlement says everybody's paying the same.
Oh, okay.
The thing you need to know as a buyer is if you're buying an existing condo unit, bare land, townhouse, whatever it is, apartment, or whether you're buying a brand new unit, you need to look at the total schedule of unit entitlement, because that tells you your percentage. So my percentage of my unit is 789 square feet. That's my unit entitlement.
Okay.
I divide it, amongst the total number at the bottom, which might be 17,000 square feet, and that tells me that my percentage for all common expenses is going to be 3.1% maybe.
Okay.
Right? And so that's used for strata fees, it's used for special levies, it's used for common costs as they're used. So that's how the strata fee comes up. We get a total number of what the cost is off the annual budget, and that's divided into, based on the bylaws, 12 equal payments. Now, a little caution about strata fees and when your strata fees are due.
Okay, this is where I was going next. Okay, good on you.
This is the next part that's a bit of a problem, because the strata fees are due based upon the bylaws when it comes to the strata fee. Most strata corporations, the strata fee is due on the first of the month in 12 equal payments.
Okay.
But we have strata corporations around the province, resort properties, we have retirement communities, we have vacation properties, we have marinas, bare land, trailer parks. We have all kinds of different configurations. Some of them actually require that their strata fees are due and payable in one payment a year.
Okay.
So you might see the bylaws say that the annual meeting is in June of each year, and the annual payment of strata fees for the year is July 1st each year in one payment. So everybody needs to look at their strata fees, because they're bylaws. They're not all the same. The other little problem is bylaws that say strata fees are due and payable on the first of the month, but if you don't pay by the 15th, then the strata corporation will send you a letter and they're going to start collection proceedings and whatnot. Those are complicated bylaws and create a lot of ambiguity in the strata. They're either due on the 1st or they're due on the 15th.
If you're shopping for a condo, but maybe for the first time, and a lot of AM 650 listeners are considering this lifestyle for the first time. Surprise, surprise, everyone's gone. We don't need this huge house anymore. It's too much work. So we're looking at strata and condo and this kind of stuff. And the guy says he's showing us these used units and says, oh, and by the way, look at the view. And the condo fee's only $300 a month. And you go, great. How long is that number good for? $300 a month for what? 12 months or 10 years? Or what time frame should you factor in when you're told the strata fees on this residence are X dollars? Then you have to, in your mind, go for blank months. How many months?
Well, it would be only for whatever amount of time is remaining for that fiscal year.
Oh,
so
okay.
if the Strata approved their annual budget in June and I'm buying in January,
you got 6 months left.
I got 6 months of maybe what this predictable strata fee is. But that doesn't mean that the strata won't run short and have to call a meeting for a special levy, or they're going to have to, or they're going to have a deficit and I'm going to have to pay it. There's so much more information you have to look at when you're dealing with strata fees. But that's the basic essence of strata fees.
And is the real estate agent obligated to tell you the condo fee is $300 a month on this unit for the next year? Or do they just kind of leave it open-ended?
No, the obligation really is you, the buyer, and your agent, the buyer. You obtain a Form B information certificate. That tells you the information of the Strata Corporation, the budget, and the strata fee and the duration. So that information is within the information certificate. You need to get copies of the annual budget. You need to see the minutes. You need to read the time frames. You need to understand. And $300 means nothing, right? It just means that right now it's $300.
Right.
What I really care about is if I look at unit entitlement, is my share of the liabilities 0.89% of all the common costs or 4.89% of all the common costs? Because that's a huge difference. And when you're dealing with monthly strata fees, the unit entitlements might vary by, $50 to $75 a month, depending on the size of the unit.
Sure.
But that's okay on a $400 strata fee. Jump that into a $500,000 special levy for the roof.
Right.
That's now a huge difference in unit entitlement is the law, by the way. It's not something that strata corporations can just randomly change. If the strata corporation wants to amend unit entitlement, they need to pass a unanimous vote, which means every strata lot owner must vote in favor of it. No exemptions, no abstentions, no absences, and they must re-register a new schedule with the Land Title Registry.
Vanessa Franco is a lawyer with the law firm Clark Wilson in Vancouver. She's the person that Tony says, well, you might end up having to go talk to Vanessa here because, I'm sorry, Veronica.
It's Veronica, but Vanessa's kind of a new, younger name,
well,
so there you go.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Veronica Franco is with Clark Wilson in Vancouver, and we wanted to ask you, because Tony said you're the person people go to when they get in trouble about this. He's done an outstanding job of describing strata fees. We've only got a couple of minutes before the break. Can you take the 2 minutes and just talk to us, please, Veronica, about special levies? What is a special levy? And when we come back after the break, we'll talk about what happens when you don't pay them. But what the heck is a special levy?
A special levy is essentially an assessment or a special request by the Strata Corporation for a lump sum of money, usually to pay for common expenses that don't occur at least once a year. So you're talking a re-roofing, a building envelope, new windows, the big capital expenses.
Okay.
And it's when you don't have enough money in the Strata Corporation's contingency reserve fund to pay for it. You might take part of the money from the contingency reserve fund and supplement it with a special levy, or you might not have enough money, or that money you decided to set aside for some other capital expense. You decide that the Strata Corporation decides that they need a special levy to fund the entirety of a capital expense.
Right.
Like strata fees, they're apportioned among the owners by unit entitlement. So that formula, again, is very important in knowing how much of the special levy is due and owing by a particular owner. And the other key factor about special levies is that they are approved by a 3/4 vote resolution at an annual general meeting or a special general meeting.
Okay. Now, if I'm moving into a new building, brand new, just put together, just looks fabulous. It's not likely it's going to need a re-roofing job or any of that kind of stuff. Is it a pretty reasonably safe bet that a brand new building is unlikely to have special levies in the first few years of its existence?
Even with new buildings, there's no guarantee. You might run a deficit in the first few years, and you end up spending more money than you expect, and you have to fund that deficit. And that can be done by way of a special levy. Or let's say you wanted to do some upgrades, like security upgrades. You might want to install more security cameras in your Strata Corporation because what was installed there just isn't good enough. And so that might end up being by way of special levy too. They won't be quite as big as the re-roof, but but even so, you still might have some special levies.
So as is the case with any homeowner anywhere, special levies cover the unexpected, and anybody who owns any type of house gets the unexpected.
That's right.
All right. We'll take a quick break here. Veronica Franco with Clark Wilson in studio, along with the Executive Director of the Condominium Homeowners Association of BC, Tony Gioventu. I'm Sterling Fox. This is Key Pacific's Talk About Strata, and we're back.
Delivering relevant and beneficial consumer information. This is Experts on Call, and there's more still ahead on AM 650.